Hi, I'm Rose Lemmons-Berry. I'm the business administrator at Providence Presbytery, and I'm the presenter for PPP tonight, Providence Presbytery Presents. I will be sharing some information and resources about how your church can prepare for an emergency or a disaster. I'm going to share a small video from PDA to begin with.
There are sounds that most of us love to hear, sounds that elicit good feelings and images of joy.
Happy birthday!
Comfort. Hope for the life ahead. But there are other sounds. Sounds that leave us with feelings of fear, grief, suffering. Throughout our country and in every corner of the globe, people just like you and me, with lives full of promise and hope, turn a corner to find life's greatest obstacles staring them in the face. They experience the kind of disaster that is beyond our comprehension. But that is where we come in.
I don't know if you noticed, but it was a beautiful day today. And as you know, that can change in a minute. Is your church prepared to react to a disaster? Most often, disasters occur with little or no warning. Don't get caught unprepared. Preparedness can make a disaster recovery less daunting. Having a disaster plan is essential. Preparedness is a shared responsibility. Eric Whitaker said, "Emergency preparedness is a team sport. Make sure your church is the team player." A tornado, a fire, a flood, an active shooter situation, a cyber attack, a medical emergency, or a pandemic, your family, your church family, needs to be prepared. Natural disasters in the U.S. are increasing and is getting more expensive. In 2019, the country suffered its fifth consecutive year in which 10 or more weather or climate-related disasters have occurred. We, as Presbyterians, want our churches to be prepared. In 2014, the Presbyterian Disaster Assistance began a partnership with the Presbyterian women to engage PW in the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness training. These trained individuals can assist your church with your emergency preparedness. Providence Presbytery has several individuals in our presbytery that have completed this training. These individuals are willing to do training for individuals in your congregation, depending on COVID and protocol right now, but contact the Presbytery office for a list of those trainers. Your church wants to protect your people, abide by community standard of care, and reduce any foreseeable liabilities for your church. Make sure your church is aware of any local or state laws concerning community standard of care. Also, look at the FEMA guidelines for churches. When you start to make your emergency preparedness plan, remember there are 5 items that you should consider when talking about this plan and any disaster events. 1, how to prepare. 2, how to prevent. 3, how to reduce the severity of the event. 4, how to respond. And 5, what do you do afterwards? Our main focus tonight will be on how to prepare for an emergency. We will only touch on how to prevent, reduce the severity, how to respond, and what to do afterwards because of time constraints. If you would like more in-depth information, please contact the Presbytery office requesting one of the trainers for assistance. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about how to prepare. Each year in December, Providence Presbytery asks for contact information for key leadership within your church. One of those positions is for an emergency disaster preparedness point of contact to receive and disseminate information to your church. Each church should have an emergency preparedness planning team. Now you're asking, how do we do that? Who needs to be on that team? Your church may have a different title for this team. This team should be comprised of individuals in your congregation that have unique skills, expertise in certain fields, or have a key perspective to a certain segment of your congregation. This team will assist your church with disaster preparedness communication, development of resources, training, and direct responses to emergencies within your church. Such team members could be, but they're not limited to, first responders, such as your fire, your police officers, sheriff's department, military, doctors, nurses, EMTs, HR personnel, insurance agents, attorneys, someone representing the disabled population within your church, someone representing the elderly population within your church, and any other specific population of your church. And you ask maybe, why HR personnel? Because they can get you back up and running in a timely manner after an event. Insurance agents know what is covered, who to talk to, how to make everything to connect. Attorneys are there for the legal ramifications of what has happened to you. And then your population, such as your disabled, they will have a different viewpoint of what is needed for them that you as an able-bodied person may not think about. And also the elderly, as to how they can be assisted if they're at church or if they're not at church, and you need to assist your congregation with a disaster or an event. They give a different perspective on what the elderly need in that situation. And then you as a congregation may have a different population of people that I have not talked about. So take a look at your congregation and see what is your general makeup, and go from that to decide who should be on your team for disaster. So what you're looking for is a good cross-section of individuals that can look at your specific church's needs from all aspects. These individuals will create an EOP, or an emergency operation plan, or an emergency disaster preparedness plan, whatever your church chooses to call the plan. Basically, this is a step-by-step checklist of what needs to be done in an emergency situation. Basically, the who, what, when, where, and how to for emergency situations at your church. Remember, you typically have people in multiple locations in the church at the same time, not just in the sanctuary. Don't forget to include the nursery, Sunday school rooms, etc. in emergency plan. Remember, your plan is a living document. So if your building structure changes, your location of fire extinguishers change, you need to update your plan. One of the most important pieces of this plan is to include a floor plan, exit routes, sprinkler system locations, location of fire extinguishers, location of first aid kits, AEDs or automated external defibrillators. And do you have people trained to use these AEDs? Your church's written plan, when completed, should be reviewed by each member of your emergency planning team, copies made available to your ushers, security team, Sunday school teachers, nursery workers, etc. You also may want to share this plan with other responders, nurses and doctors that are in your congregation, since they may be called upon to assist in an emergency situation. Make sure your congregation is aware of the plan. Copy of the plan should be given to the presbytery office. You may also want to share this plan with your local fire department and police department. Not all, but some cities will keep these plans on file to assist them in handling emergencies at your church. If you rent out your facilities, are the groups renting aware of your emergency plan information? Are they shown the location of where floor plans with emergency information on them are located? Are they told who to call in case of an emergency? Even if you do not rent out your facility, are your own groups given this information? You remember, not everybody may be at the church at the same time, so make sure that all groups are aware of your emergency plan. Remember, memories fade and volunteers change. The plan should be reviewed annually, and when a volunteer comes on board, this plan should be given to them and explained as part of their training. One of the most frequent emergencies that occur at church is medical emergencies. Someone may pass out, become injured, or even worse, pass away during church. Does your church have a written plan of what to do? Do you know which individuals in the congregation will take the charge of the emergency? Who is designated to call 911? Do you know who in your church has medical training? Your plan should include that a certain percentage of your emergency planning preparedness team is CPR certified. It is a good practice to have all staff members CPR trained. Just a small example of items you should have in your emergency preparedness plan. 1, your membership list and contact information for your congregation, including email addresses. You need to update this at least quarterly, adding new members, deleting members that have left or that have died. Insurance policies and list of assets reviewed annually. Scan copies of important documents. Have a remote backup. Keep an additional copy in an off-site safe location. Review this quarterly. A designated central location for congregants to check for updates, such as a Facebook page, your website, or updating by email, etc. List of congregational members with special needs noted and updated annually. Insurance policies reviewed annually and saved in multiple locations. This is important. So if there is an actual emergency at the church, if there's a fire or a tornado and your church does no longer exist, you need these documents to be able to move forward and to get your church back to meeting. Financial and session records saved electronically and stored in multiple locations monthly. If a disaster or other emergency strikes, you may only have seconds or a few minutes to react. Just like changing the batteries in your smoke detectors when the time changes, review your emergency preparedness plans semi-annually or annually. Now let's talk a little bit about how you might prevent some disasters. And you're thinking, well, I can't prevent a flood or a tornado or a lightning strike. But there are things that you can do to prepare to make the situation and the severity of it less. One way to prevent a disaster from being catastrophic is to have drills and exercises, such as fire drills or tornado drills. You don't have to do this during a worship service, but you may want to do this on a Saturday. Invite the congregation to participate. You can even ask the fire department if they would be willing to be part of the exercise. This gives you time to practice when lives aren't at stake. This is where your posted maps and emergency exit floor plans are crucial. Your team will then see what needs to be tweaked in the emergency plan prior to an actual emergency. Share emergency kit information with congregations. Kits can be assembled and distributed by groups within the church to the elderly and special needs individuals. Remember, emergencies happen. Make a plan. Be ready. Remember, winging it is not a plan. Start your emergency plan preparedness today. Below the video, you will find some links for resources that can assist you in making your plan. Also, a template for your church to start your plan. If you have any other questions, you're more than welcome to contact the Presbytery office and we can connect you with one of the trainers. I appreciate you being with us tonight. Have a great evening.